Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Rux, I'm a Western tropical astrologer, and today we're going to be talking about the full moon lunar eclipse coming up on the 13th, 14th of March, depending on where in the world you're based. The eclipse is actually happening on the 14th of March at 6:54 GMT time. So of course you can adjust that for your own time zone. The eclipse is happening at 23 degrees, 56 minutes of Virgo. What does that mean? It means that if you have in your natal chart planets, angles, important points such as the North Node around 23, 24 degrees of the mutable signs, you will feel this eclipse the most. What are the mutable signs? Let's recap. Pisces, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Gemini. If you have planets or angles around 23, 24 degrees of the following, you might really like this eclipse. Who am I talking to? Those who have planets or angles around 23, 24 degrees of Taurus, Scorpio, Cancer, and Capricorn. So the eclipse will harmoniously aspect your natal planetary placements. Some of you folks might have heard me say this in the past, but I know that there are new people joining us all the time. So I am going to explain once again why we don't feel every single astrological event going on in the sky. That is because we are likely to feel only the transits, only the lunations, etc., that activate our natal chart, that activate planets, angles, important points within our own personal natal chart. How can you obtain your natal chart? How can you study it? How can you better understand it? Well, that's a different story. But how can you get your natal chart? It's actually very simple. You need to know your date, time, and place of birth, and you can Google online natal chart generator. There's a ton of free software out there, such as the one offered by astro.com or astro-seek.com, and you can input your date, time, and place of birth. And voila, your natal chart will be generated. And there's going to be a list somewhere on the website that you use with your planets, Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, etc. And it will also show you the degrees at which they are at. Save that list of the degrees, and then when you watch general forecasts, general horoscopes such as this one, such as the one that I'm doing today, you can kind of like keep track of the degrees. And when you hear me saying things like, this eclipse speaks mostly to people who have planets around 23 degrees of Pisces, you're gonna know, okay, I need to listen, I need to tune in, I need to pay extra attention. Now let's go back into the eclipse update. Eclipse season, folks, generally is quite wild. Now, why do I say this? Because eclipses are said to put us back on track on the path of our destiny. They are associated, eclipses, both solar and lunar, with big shifts in our lives, big milestone moments, big endings, and big new beginnings. Now, there is an element of fatedness here. What do I mean by that? I mean that we don't necessarily always consciously choose or go in the direction of what an eclipse brings up. So lunar eclipses happen at a full moon. They're like a full moon, but with extra impact, with a stronger impact, a full moon on steroids. I've used this expression before. I'm going to use it again. I think it's the best at describing what we can expect from a lunar eclipse. So lunar eclipses are points of culmination, of peaks, of seeing results, of seeing outcomes, of endings. Also, lunar eclipses are times at which, as Judith Hill says, the celestial tides are flowing out. So it's a time to let go of something. It's a time to release something in our lives. It's a time when something might exit our life, such as, I don't know, like a project, a job, an individual, an organization. It might feel like things are coming to a close, they are coming to an end. And generally, the way I look at it is there's not necessarily a lot of point in negotiating with the energy of the eclipse. So if something does exit your life, I would see it as an indicator of the fact that its time has come to an end. I would see it as an indicator of the fact that it's served its purpose, and now it's time for you to focus on something else. It's time to focus in a different direction. It's time to build in a different direction. So, saying that, when are you likely to feel this eclipse the most? You've probably heard me say in the past, a week before, a week after the eclipse. So 13th, 14th of March, but you might also feel its effects a week before and a week after. That still stands, what I said before, but I would also pay special attention. So after the eclipse comes to pass, I would pay special attention to what's coming up at the end of May, last week of May, until the 11th of June of this year. And I'm also going to say last week of June, pay attention to what's happening in your life. Essentially, we might see a continuation of the themes brought up at the time of the eclipse. We might see them fully come to pass, fully materialize, fully take shape. End of May, beginning of June, as well as last week of June. End of May, beginning of June, the South Node is going to reach the degree of the eclipse, the true South Node. And at the end of June, Mars is going to be in Virgo, activating the degree, triggering the degree of the eclipse. So sometimes it is possible that you might, I don't know, experience the eclipse and you're thinking, nothing's really happened. I even have, I don't know, my sun at 23 degrees of Pisces, let's say, and really nothing came up at the time of the eclipse. Well, to you, I say this: be observant. Take note of what's happening both around you as well as what's going on inside of you. And then pay special attention to these periods that I have flagged, end of May, beginning of June, as well as the last week of June, okay? Because you might notice that things are somehow linked in your life. So events that popped up in March, they are somehow all falling into place or coming together, or much clearer to interpret or to understand in terms of their meaning later in the spring/summer. This eclipse, in terms of aspects, is actually making a harmonious aspect with Uranus. So, Uranus and Taurus, essentially whatever is exiting our life, whatever we are called to release, to let go of, might feel very freeing, might feel very liberating, and it might actually make a lot of room for progress, for innovation, for more authenticity in our lives. Because the eclipse is happening in Virgo, from an archetypal perspective, from a symbolic perspective, is an energy that is very service-oriented. It's an energy that ensures that systems function properly. It is an energy that is very geared towards selection, organization, so organizing things, structuring things, ordering things, cleaning things up, both literally as well as metaphorically speaking. The Virgo energy is very focused on purification, on purifying things. Virgo archetypally is very much concerned with quality control. It is a very fastidious, a very meticulous energy. It's also very strongly attuned to everything technical and everything crafty, okay? So, of course, we're going to talk about this for every single zodiac sign, but we may feel like it is time, or we may feel like we're getting a bit of a nudge from our surroundings, from our circumstances, to get rid of, to let go of maybe a part of our life or an element of our life that involved a lot of technicality, a lot of structure, a lot of organization, a lot of attention to detail, that involved, I don't know, us being very discerning. We're taking a very discerning attitude, that involved a lot of productivity, and maybe also a part of our life in which we were hyper analytical, hypercritical, because that's what, I don't know, the circumstances required of of us. At a collective level, we can expect when the eclipse comes up, and generally I have noticed, I mean, it's not just me. I have noticed this personally, but I've also read about it, and many astrologers before me have taken note of this. Eclipses generally affect the collective quite a lot. So changes may happen at a collective level. They may impact large groups of people. They may impact masses of people. So we can expect at the time of this eclipse at a collective level, oh God, I'm inventing words. I apologize. Big changes, big shifts when it comes to work. Maybe when it comes to certain fields within the work sectors, certain industries. I repeat, Virgo is generally very concerned with the technical fields. So I'm thinking of fields such as engineering, for instance. I'm also thinking of fields such as healthcare, pharmaceuticals, anything connected with logistics, administration. So we might see big endings in specific sectors, in specific industries. There is a possibility that whatever comes up at the time of this eclipse might actually impact people's lives in a sense that their jobs might change dramatically. I repeat. So big shifts within workspaces and within certain industries. Also big shifts when it comes to healthcare, the healthcare system, and endings on a technical level. So we might read in the news about, I don't know, certain like tools or softwares no longer being used. Is there a possibility at a collective level that we might hear of redundancies being made? Yes, that is very possible. Now, the ruler of the eclipse is Mercury. Mercury is going to be in Aries. So Aries is a sign very strongly associated with new beginnings. It's also very strongly associated with survival, with action. It's also very strongly associated with maybe conflict. Survival involves a certain degree of conflict or opposition. So whatever endings are coming up at the time of this lunar eclipse, they seem to show us very clearly the direction in which we're supposed to be headed, okay? The other very interesting thing is that Mercury is going to be conjunct Venus retrograde at the time of this eclipse. It feels like we might have heard about some of these changes coming up in the past in our lives. Maybe someone told us in the past. They might involve potentially collaborations or certain partnerships or certain relationships that need to come to an end, maybe, or that need to be altered significantly. And when I say that someone told us about these, maybe they have given us a heads up in the past. And now with the Venus retrograde active, and essentially Mercury goes retrograde literally after the eclipse, the next day, it feels like things are finally happening, but we did get a warning, or we did get a heads up way back. So this is the general kind of energy of the eclipse. Before we go into the updates for each of the 12 zodiac signs, I do want to remind you, especially those of you who are new to my channel. I mean, maybe I'm not reminding you, maybe I'm just like letting you know for the first time. I do want to share with you that if you want to work with me, I'm a full-time consulting astrologer. I do personal consultations, personal astrological readings on a day-to-day basis with my clients. So if you want to work with me, you can find me on my website, which is written in the stars-astrology.com. You can also find it in the pinned comments, as well as in the description box. It is my passion, and I also consider it my mission, to help people reconnect with their soul's intentions, to help them make use of astrology, to help people make use of the tremendous insights that astrology can bring into our life in a practical way on a day-to-day basis. It's also my passion to help people align with the cosmic tides, align with the various cosmic cycles, chapters that they're going through, because there is no point, if you ask me, in trying to swim upstream. On the absolute contrary. So when we work in alignment with the cosmos, when we work in alignment with the cosmic energies at play, we are much more likely to see fulfillment and success in our lives. My specialty is natal chart interpretation, but also forecasting, relationship focused astrology. I do compatibility readings, but also I am very, very keen to help you understand the patterns, the lessons, the themes that you're likely to deal with within the relationship sector in this lifetime. I also do relocation astrology. I use relocated charts as well as astrocartography. So these are just a few that stand out. And of course, vocational astrology. So if you are at a crossroads, if you're trying to figure out what is my calling from a vocational perspective, but also if you are maybe dealing with very concrete, practical questions, such as how can I make more money with the use of my natal chart? How can I tap into my resources in order to be more prosperous and abundant? All of that astrology can help us with. So once again, written in the stars-astrology.com, that is where you can find me. If you are in a rush, so generally after you make the booking on my website, there is a waiting time of around a month to a month and a half until we meet via Zoom video call and we actually do the consultation. So if you're in a rush or if you are dealing with a time-sensitive issue, there is also an emergency option on my website. After you've made the payment for that, we aim to schedule our reading within 3 days of you making the payment. So you do have the emergency option as well. Now, without further ado, let us go into the updates for each of the 12 zodiac signs. And please, 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 I know I say this all the time, but alas, I think it's important. Listen to the update for your ascendant, for your rising sign, because that is how these general horoscopes are built, with the ascendant in mind. Okay? And without further ado, let's dive in. Aries, Aries suns, and Aries risings. 13th, 14th of March, my lovely Aries. This full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo is activating your 6th house, 12th house axis. It's the axis of work, of health. It is the axis of service. Mercury, the ruler of the eclipse, is going to be in your 1st house of new beginnings and of identity, in conjunction to Venus, the ruler of your house of relationships. Okay, so this is a very interesting time for you, my lovely Aries. I do want to point out that lunar eclipses can also bring people from the past in our lives, but it can also pinpoint where we have some sort of a karmic debt to pay towards certain people. So with that in mind, Aries, what can you expect? Essentially, some of you can expect some sort of ending, some sort of closure at work. So a project might come to an end, or your work from a day-to-day perspective might look very different after this eclipse. Maybe you're going to work with a different team. Maybe some people are leaving. Maybe some clients are leaving. Maybe you're no longer going to collaborate with the same colleagues that you have collaborated in the past. I am going to say it. If you have any sort of potentially karmic debts to pay within the workspace, and what do I mean by that? I don't necessarily mean that you've done anything wrong in this lifetime, but it could be something from a previous lifetime. There is a possibility that something might feel like it is being taken away from you in the workspace. So maybe it's an important client that you had invested a lot of time and energy into. It's an important project. It's a project that was close to your heart. There's also a very high possibility that you might stop working with someone. It could be that a business collaboration comes to an end. You might need to revisit how you go about wrapping things up in regards to this collaboration, because it does feel like things could drag out a little bit until maybe like April, May. So even though there could be news coming up around this coming to a close, it does feel like it's probably going to be a prolonged ending in some shape or form. There's also very high possibility, Aries, that you are wrapping up some sort of a chapter associated with your health around this time. So if you've been investing in your health, if you've been taking better care of your health, then you're probably going to see the results. If you haven't been doing that, then you're also going to see the results of not allocating enough time, enough energy, enough resources to your health, wellness, and well-being. There is a chance that you might become very aware of the fact that you need to give up on specific habits around this time, my dear Aries. You might also communicate to someone who you've been working with on the health wellness sector front. Maybe you've been working with a therapist, potentially. Maybe you've been working with, I don't know, like a nutritionist. You might let them know that you're no longer going to collaborate with them moving forward. It's also equally possible that as a result of maybe dealing with some sort of a frustration in the workspace, my apologies, in the health sector, although it could be in the workspace as well, and it could be generated by frustrations in the workspace. If you are dealing with any sort of issues health-wise, you might decide to reach back to someone who you have successfully collaborated with in the past. So, for example, a personal trainer kind of advisor, let's say. My dear Taurus, Taurus suns and Taurus risings. 13th, 14th of March, full moon lunar eclipse activating your 5th house, 11th house axis in a nice aspect to Uranus, and Mercury is going to conjunct Venus. Okay, a lot of things here. I feel like you could have potentially some sort of a culminating point within a friendship. So if a friendship maybe hasn't been working, I feel like you might say something, or there is a possibility that maybe a friend is going to say something to you. I do believe that they might make you aware of maybe one of your blind spots, maybe the fact that you are overly critical, maybe you say things like, oh, you should do this, you should do that, and you're thinking, this is just tough love. I'm just like doing them a favor. I'm being critical because I wish them well and I care about them. But this friend might not really appreciate the criticism. So they might pinpoint that to you, and you might realize, maybe I was kind of like using mean words, and they did not land in the way that I intended them to land. There's also a possibility that a creative project is coming to an end. Potentially also maybe a project that involved collaboration with a wider group of people. You do seem to be feeling a tiny little bit of relief maybe if this project is coming to an end, because potentially it frees you up to do other things on an individual level. There's also a possibility that you might realize that you have to give up on something that you enjoyed doing, or maybe you're going to have less time to spend on one of your passions and hobbies because you have greater goals that you want to focus on. And maybe a specific like hobby or like a favorite kind of pastime is going to have to be set aside maybe for, I don't know, times when you're on your own, because now you have greater goals. You want to make some big commitments for the future. You might also have some significant responsibilities towards others. Others are relying on you. Maybe you're going to play a very important role within a community, within an organization. And alas, something's got to give. Let's put it this way. Last but not least, this full moon can bring, it's a lunar eclipse, can also bring a big closure, a big peak, a big ending in the life of a child. So maybe they are, I don't know, like graduating, or maybe they are wrapping up their, I don't know, like application process for university. I have literally no clue as to when the, I don't know, like school kind of like, or university calendar year runs, when it begins, when it ends. So please forgive me if this has nothing to do with it. Of course, astrology is symbolic and it doesn't tell us concrete manifestation. So it could be that your child is wrapping up something else in their life. They might make you aware of some of the big plans that they have for the future, and potentially you could feel a tiny little bit of frustration, maybe because they have hidden certain things from you, maybe because you did not see this coming, maybe because they've been doing things behind your back, possibly. Last but not least, it could also feel like maybe it's time for you to take your focus off of children for a while and focus on greater goals, especially career goals. And there could be a part of you that is maybe a bit conflicted about this. I do want to say. Nevertheless, you might have help, you might have support in terms of maybe other people looking after your child. If you are dating, then some people might say goodbye to certain romantic interests because you might realize that they are not it. Maybe you discover some sort of secret or something that's been going on behind the scenes when it comes to a, I don't know, like lover, romantic partner, or someone of this nature. And yeah, it could be the end of it. Let's put it this way. My dear Geminis, Gemini suns and Gemini risings. 13th, 14th of March, full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo in your 4th house of home, family, life, and living situation, ruled by Mercury in the 11th house. Okay. So Geminis, a few things could come up here. You might wrap up an important chapter at home within your domestic life. So some of you could wrap up maybe working on, I don't know, the renovation of the home, or like an extension of the home or something along those lines. Some of you could wrap up maybe a big goal that you had in relation to your home life and family life and living situation. Some of you could hear news of the fact that you're going to have to move or to relocate around this time, and it could have something to do, if you do hear news of this nature, it could have something to do with the direction in which your career is evolving, which is probably very exciting. And I do believe that this lunar eclipse is saying it's time to take your focus off of home, off of private life, off of domestic life, and really invest your energy and your effort and your discipline and your resources into your career growth. But essentially, something might need to end at home, or you might have to say goodbye to your home life as is because your career is pulling you in a completely different direction, as I said. And this could involve relocation, but it could also involve equally, again, because the astrology is symbolic, Geminis, it could just involve spending less time at home with your kids, with your family. You might not have as much time as you used to have for them. Some of you could also hear news connected with parents. So a parent might wrap up a big chapter in their life. I would not be surprised if some Geminis, especially Gemini risings, might hear news of a parent maybe retiring or changing jobs or something of that nature. I do feel like this is a time when you're being liberated somehow, Geminis. You're being relieved of some of the duties and the responsibilities that you had at home or towards family members. And you can finally focus maybe on some goals that you had delayed, that you had postponed, and some goals that you really care about. Cancerians, my Cancerian brothers and sisters, I'm a Cancer rising, in case you're wondering. So Cancer suns and Cancer risings, 13th, 14th of March, full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo, activating your 3rd house and 9th house axis. Okay, my lovely Cancerians, what are you doing here? So you could be wrapping up maybe a course, a class, or a chapter involving education. Maybe you are getting your, I don't know, like certificate or your diploma. Maybe you are getting that qualification that you've put a lot of time and energy into. It does seem to be an educational chapter that is somehow connected with your career. So maybe you are, as I said, getting a qualification, and now you can implement what you have learned in your professional life, or you can finally announce it to the world and say, yes, I've been studying XYZ for some time, and ta-da, I did it. I got my certificate, and now I'm offering this service. Maybe it's something that you wanted to announce for a while because the ruler of the eclipse, Mercury, is going to be conjunct Venus in retrograde. So I feel like maybe you've been kind of like working on this for some time, but you potentially might have waited for the right moment to share the news with the world. This is also a time, Cancerians, when you might be receiving news connected with traveling. So I would not be surprised if you had to travel around this time, or make plans to travel, or book tickets, or you might be called somewhere far, somewhere far from home, for professional purposes. So if you do have to travel or if you do have to plan a trip, it does seem to revolve a great deal around your professional life, but it could also revolve a great deal around your public life, public status, and public reputation. So you might need to travel, maybe because of, I don't know, like reputational reasons. Maybe you need to be a speaker somewhere or something like that. Speaking of speakers, there is a possibility that a speaking opportunity might come up, or that you might deliver some sort of a speech or some sort of a presentation around this time. And it does look like you are delivering this very, very successfully, if you ask me, to the point where you might, as a result of this, I don't know, like presentation, you might reconnect with people from the past. You might start working with them once again. You might hear back from them after a long time, after you haven't spoken to them in a while. Because it's a lunar eclipse in your third house, this full moon, well, this eclipse, it is a full moon, can also bring significant news connected with siblings, cousins, or neighbors. Something in the life of these people might come to a close, might come to an end. So I'm just going to give you an example. Let's say your sibling is graduating and they're letting you know, yes, my graduation ceremony is going to be on, I don't know, like the 9th of June or something like that. So that is also very, very possible. In regards to neighbors, maybe like a neighbor is moving, or your neighborhood might look very, very different after this lunar eclipse, but it looks like your kind of like surroundings are changing potentially. Some of you could also sell a car or sell something important because you have other plans. Maybe because, I don't know, you're going to have to move someplace else and you're no longer going to need a car. So that is also very, very possible. Leos, Leo suns, and Leo risings. My dear Leos, 13th, 14th of March, active. I was about to say 3 days before, 3 days after, but I'm going to say also week before, week after. And don't forget to pay attention to the end of May until the 11th of June, as well as last week of June, for a further activation of this eclipse energy. The eclipse is putting the spotlight on your financial sectors. So I feel like you might receive some big news connected with expenses that you need to take care of, potentially also connected with your salary. If you have been waiting for news regarding, I don't know, like a raise or something along those lines, there is a possibility that you might receive the news at this point in time. But I do believe ultimately this eclipse is more about expenses. It's more about making payments to others, maybe paying off loans, debts, credit cards, taxes, etc. There is a possibility that you could be receiving news of a lump sum of money making its way to you. And maybe, just maybe as a result of that, you might be thinking, how can I don't know, experience more of this type of financial kind of like return on investment, or how can I attract more of this type of financial abundance in my life without having to focus so much on salary or kind of like income that comes from like the daily toil, let's say. There is a possibility around this time that your material situation is changing, maybe because you are leaving behind a source of income. Maybe you are deciding, yeah, you know what, I'm no longer going to work for these people, or I'm going to leave my job, or something along those lines. But the focus seems to be on money specifically. If you are leaving behind a source of income, there is a very high possibility that someone in your life, it could be, I don't know, it could be a parent, it could be a partner, someone in your life might support you materially speaking. I feel like there's also something going on in terms of like legal developments that impacts your financial situation, Leos. So there could be maybe changes in legislation that are going to impact the way you charge people for your services, that are going to impact maybe the way in which you are taxed. So do keep an eye on the news, and do keep an eye on any changes at that sort of, again, legal or institutional level. Virgos, Virgo suns and Virgo risings. I mean, clearly, you are the stars of this eclipse. This eclipse puts the spotlight on you more than anything else. So what can you expect? A relationship is going through a dramatic transformation. I'm going to put it out there. Now, before I get the single Virgos commenting, being like, no, I'm not in a relationship. Why do you have to always talk about relationships? It doesn't have to be necessarily a romantic relationship. It can be a relationship with financial implications. So there is a possibility that you might revisit who you collaborate with from a financial perspective. So your relationship with your financial advisor, your relationship with your accountant might go through a review. There is a possibility that maybe they are reaching out and saying, listen, if you want to continue working together, then it's going to work this way. So they might have some new requirements for you, or new expectations for you. And these expectations do seem to focus on finances, essentially. There is also a possibility that you might be releasing, Virgos, an old view of yourselves, an old identity, an old way of thinking about yourselves, an old maybe attitude towards life, an old approach towards life. You might be releasing this. Why? Because you may want to make things work with someone. You may want to make things work with a partner. It could be a business partner. It could be maybe an advisor. It could be a romantic partner, but you might want to make it work. And if you are being extra attached to your way of doing things, and maybe also your old view of yourselves, Virgos, then it doesn't necessarily feel like this collaboration, this partnership can work out. You do seem to have a lot to learn from this person, and they are likely to shake up your worldview and your life philosophy and your belief system. So it might be worth just kind of going with the flow and saying, yeah, let's see where this takes me. Let's see. I mean, I'm going to act completely out of character and I'm going to trust this person, and let's see what's going to come out of it. If you are involved in any sort of like one-to-one, I don't know, like adversarial kind of oppositional type of interaction, if you are involved in a legal battle, let's say, I am going to put it out there. It does look like your opponent is a little bit better aspected than you are. So you might need to potentially give in or make a bit of a compromise. I feel like it can be a mutually fulfilling compromise, but nevertheless a compromise on your end, because yeah, they seem to I don't want to say they seem to be in the right, because you might also be in the right, but they seem to be more maybe convincing in the eyes of the law, especially if it is a legal battle. Now, if you have any sort of like conflict or open argument with someone around this time, I do believe it might come to an end, and I do believe you might see the ways in which you might need to address this person differently or approach this person differently if you want things to work out with them. Now, if you don't want things to work out with them, then this could actually be you distancing yourselves from these people, Virgos. But I do believe there is a way for things to work out. Nevertheless, we do have free will, so up to you how you decide to go about this. 13th, 14th of March, Libras. Okay. Libra suns and Libra risings. This lunar eclipse, active also week before, week after, but also please pay attention to end of May, last week of May until the 11th of June, as well as last week of June for the full activation, for the full manifestation of the eclipse-related events. This eclipse, Libras, puts the spotlight on your 12th house and your 6th house. So mental health, physical health, what's going on behind the scenes, self-sabotage, retreat, getting away from the world. I'm just going to say it. Libras, it feels like your time away from the world is coming to an end. If you've been, I don't know, doing something in the shadows, if you've been retreating, if you've been like keeping some things to yourselves, if you've been operating, I don't know, under the radar, let's say, this eclipse is giving you a nudge towards wrapping up that chapter, towards getting out of the shadows, getting out of a place of retreat, getting out of this sort of like under the radar kind of energy. You seem to be drawn in the direction of work, day-to-day kind of like duties and responsibilities, very practical tasks on a day-to-day basis. You seem to be drawn towards maybe committing to a new schedule, committing to a new set of habits and routines. Also, maybe when it comes to your health. I do believe that this full moon lunar eclipse is fabulous at helping you let go of ways in which you have been sabotaging yourselves. Maybe you've been extra perfectionist, Libras. Maybe you've been extra critical. Maybe you've been extra analytical when it comes to what you have to offer, but also maybe when it comes to interacting with others, maybe working with others, maybe relationships, I want to say. So this eclipse is actually superb when it comes to letting go of whatever has been holding you back from making things work in the workspace, making things work within maybe a specific relationship, making things work within professional partnerships. I can also tell you that there's a possibility that the conversations maybe, because it might be more than one, the conversations that you're having around the time of the eclipse are helping you see how you've been shooting yourselves in the foot and are helping you see what it is that you need to get rid of. Let's say. And if anything behind the scenes has been sabotaging your work, or if anything behind the scenes has been sabotaging your health, physical or mental, it could be that conversations with people that you're having around this time are almost like a source of enlightenment. I know I should find like another word, but it might dawn on you as a result of these conversations. Oh my God, this is what I've been doing. And this is what's been, I don't know, like affecting my health. And so on. So see who reaches out, see who you talk to. And I feel like you can also make amends towards someone around this time. If you've had a hard time, maybe, I don't know, getting on their good side, or if you've had a hard time collaborating with this person, if you had a hard time maybe working with this person, both professionally as well as in your personal lives, I feel like you can understand them better. And I feel like you can also make amends towards them if you haven't necessarily maybe like treated them right, let's say. Scorpios, Scorpio suns and Scorpio risings. 13th, 14th of March, active week before, week after, full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo. It activates your 11th house, 5th house axis. Please pay attention, Scorpios, also to the last week of May until the 11th of June, as well as the last week of June for a further activation of the themes of the eclipse. This eclipse might bring to an end your involvement with a professional organization. It might also bring to an end you may be working with a friend. I mean, what do I mean by that? Let's say you've made a really good friend in the workspace and they are letting you know, my dear Scorpio friend, I've gotten a better paid job. I'm going to leave this job. You might be a little bit heartbroken. I am just going to say it. So you might end a chapter that involved working with a friend, or that involved maybe working with a group of friends. There is a possibility that also around this time, you might feel like you have accomplished an important goal, work-wise or health-wise, and it's time to let go of it now. It's time to focus your attention on different things. It's time to maybe focus your attention on more fun things, more enjoyable things, maybe on spending time with loved ones, maybe on spending time at home with family. You could be presenting something to the wider world, Scorpios. So you could have an audience around this time. Maybe you're presenting a project that you've worked on for quite some time. Maybe it has an element of creativity to it. I feel like part of you is very happy with the feedback that you're getting, and maybe you can be a little bit more relaxed as a result of it. The feedback could be surprisingly good. There's also a possibility that after making maybe, I don't know, like a presentation, you get feedback that puts you down the path of maybe working on an old project or revisiting an old project and leaving this to the side. So the one that you've been, I don't know, like preparing, or the one that you've been involved with. It can be a very social time, the time of this eclipse, but I feel like you might socialize for work purposes. So you might attend maybe like a work-related event or conference, or go on a team building exercise or something along those lines. It could also be very clear to you, Scorpios, that maybe now you want other things work-wise. And as a result, you might decide to spend, I don't know, less time invested in your old targets and more time invested in what seems to make you happy at the moment. There's also a chance that you could really just have a lot of fun with someone that you, I don't know, like unexpectedly bump into in a, I don't know, in a social setup, in a maybe like a work-related setup. And not only are you likely to have a lot of fun, maybe also a new professional collaboration with this person might come up as a result of it, as a result of feeling like you're really hitting it off with this person. My dear Sagittarians, Sagittarius suns and Sagittarius risings. I mean, you are one of the signs that is going to feel this lunar eclipse a lot. I mean, you're a mutable sign, Sagittarius, Gemini, Pisces, and Virgo. You're going to feel this eclipse the most. 13th, 14th of March, active week before and week after, but also very, very active last week of May until the 11th of June, as well as last week of June, when the degree of the eclipse is being triggered. This eclipse is saying something's coming to a close, something's coming to an end when it comes to your professional path, when it comes to your existing vocational path, when it comes to your existing career status, or when it comes to your existing public status and public reputation in general. So some of you could be leaving behind a company, or you could be saying goodbye to a very prestigious role, or you could be slowly but surely walking away as a result of things happening in your private life. You could be slowly but surely walking away from, I don't know, like an image that the world, the outside world, the public world had of you. Let's say you were very well known in your field for, I don't know, being a specialist in something. And this lunar eclipse could give you a nudge to no longer identify with that status, with that role in the public sphere, but to actually maybe walk away from it, kind of like draw your energies in and focus on maybe other projects in your private life that could potentially be more aligned with what you like, what you enjoy, and potentially you exploring other avenues, career-wise, but also creatively. There is a possibility that the industry that you're in, as you know it actually, is going through a major shift. So maybe there are big kind of like changes that are being announced, I don't know, legislation-wise, or by the powers that be, or you're taking stock of the industry that you've been operating within, and you're thinking, is this what makes me happy moving forward? Is the direction in which the industry is evolving aligned with what I like to do? So as a result of maybe shifts happening at an industry level, you might decide to explore other paths. Let's say you do seem to feel liberated somehow as a result of this. So if you are walking away from a job, a role, a position, or even from an industry, it feels like you're still busy, you're still working, but you're working on other things in private. Maybe you're working on projects with people close to you, or maybe even with like family members. You do seem to have a very solid source of income. Maybe that is somehow kept private, I'd say, and maybe you decide to invest more in that. There's also a possibility that your status in the world might be changing as a result of big developments connected with children. So maybe some of you are, I don't know, like becoming parents, or some of you might announce to the world that your status is changing because you're going to be spending less time with your kids at home and more time focusing on your passion projects. Parents are also in the spotlight. A parent could walk away from a job or a home or leave behind their life as they know it. So they might decide to explore maybe a different lifestyle. Let's say. Whatever comes up around this time, Sagittarians, both in your professional sector as well as in your personal life, I would really spend some time maybe talking with a friend, let's say, and figuring out, what do you genuinely want? What genuinely makes you happy? And it might not be what used to make you happy in the past, and that's okay. That is absolutely okay. My dear Capricorns, Capricorn suns and Capricorn risings. 13th, 14th of March, active week before week after. This full moon lunar eclipse is putting the spotlight on your 9th house, 3rd house axis. A lot of things going on here. So if you are waiting for any sort of news, results, outcomes regarding maybe a legal matter that involves home, family, real estate, living situation. Maybe you're waiting for news regarding, I don't know, your green card or something like that. Or maybe a family member is waiting to hear news about their green card or their visa. I do believe you are going to receive that piece of news around this time. Mercury is conjunct Venus retrograde, so the news is probably good, but it might come, I don't know, later than expected, or the news might involve some sort of an additional delay in terms of the matter being fully put to rest. I did mention, Capricorns, please pay attention also to the last week of May until the 11th of June, as well as the last week of June, for a further materialization and manifestation of the themes of the eclipse. Now, this full moon lunar eclipse can also put the spotlight on in-laws if you have in-laws. Some in-laws might decide to move, or some in-laws might decide to visit you, or they might go traveling, or they might experience a big shift, a big change in terms of their home life and family life and living situation. If you don't have in-laws, then please ignore this. Some of you could also wrap up a journey, a trip around this time. Maybe you are traveling to see family members, or maybe there's news popping up that requires you to travel to see family members. Maybe family members travel to see you. I'd say if you are traveling around this time, it does feel like the trip might have been postponed, and there is also a possibility that you might need to be very flexible with dates and timings anyway, because Mercury goes retrograde right after the eclipse, literally the next day on the 15th of March. Some of you could also be closing a chapter, academically speaking. So maybe you are preparing for your graduation, for, I don't know, like handing in your final thesis or something along those lines. I feel like you wrapping up this chapter that's coming up with the eclipse is freeing more time and more energy in your life, Capricorns, to do the things that you enjoy doing, to have more fun, to maybe spend more time with children, to play, to go out partying, whatever it is that you want to do. So I do believe you are kind of relieved to be done with this chapter. Last but not least, from a symbolic perspective, this eclipse is pointing towards you leaving behind, Capricorns, releasing an old set of views, an old set of beliefs, an old belief system, especially a belief system very strongly anchored in maybe perfectionism and critical analysis and intense logic. I mean, I don't think there's such a thing as intense logic. I think there's just logic. You might realize that an overly rational view of the world or life philosophy, is not serving you anymore. And you might say, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna be open. I'm gonna be open to maybe new things. I'm gonna be open to, I don't know, learning from my kids. I'm gonna be open to seeing things in a new light. I'm going to be open to being less critical. So once again, I do like this influence in your lives, my dear Capricorns. One thing, however, I do want to point this out. I would keep things super flexible when it comes to anything involving traveling, both short distance as well as long distance. We are in the midst of the Venus retrograde. Mercury is going retrograde essentially the next day. So just be flexible. That's my major recommendation. Aquarius, Aquarius suns and Aquarius risings. 13th, 14th of March, full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo. It activates your financial axis. And I've got to say, Aquarians, I think you're going to like this eclipse because I feel like you're getting rid of debts somehow. You might be getting rid of debts. You might be getting rid of taxes. You might be paying off taxes. You might be paying off your credit card. You might be paying off student loans. Whatever it is that you're paying off, it feels like maybe it took you a long time to get there. You could also be paying off maybe like a large sum of money that you owed in some sort of a, I don't know, like legal battle or something connected with like any legal issues that you've been dealing with. Now, it could just be you, I don't know, having applied for a visa and now you're paying that sort of like lump sum of money that you need to pay, and it's finally out of the way and you can focus on other things and make other plans, alternative plans with your budget. I do believe you might get news around this time if you have applied for a loan, a mortgage, or anything like that, or I don't know, like a sponsorship. You might be getting news in regards to that. I don't know necessarily if this is the news that you're expecting. It does feel like there's a sense of things being let go of and released, and power outage when it comes to you relying on other people's money. And that involves, I don't know, the money of the bank, the money of sponsors, etc. Speaking of relying on other people's money, this eclipse is saying you will no longer be able to rely on someone else's money or on someone else's financial support. There is also a possibility that maybe a partner is no longer generating as much income as they used to generate. It could be your life partner, but it could also be your business partner. So as a result of that, you might need to revisit your whole budget and kind of like financial situation and say, if I'm no longer working with this person, or if it's your spouse who is, I don't know, like quitting their job, if we can no longer rely on my spouse's money, what sort of goals do I need to set financially? What sort of expenses do I need to get rid of? What sort of targets do I need to set for myself? Maybe in terms of, I don't know, like working more or applying for a different job, or like a better paying job, etc., etc. It feels like there's going to be a lot of talk around money. You could be talking about money with a spouse maybe, but also with a sibling, with a cousin, maybe with a financial advisor, maybe with a family member. A lot of talks in this direction. What I do like, so there's going to be a lot of talking, and mostly about money, but not just about money. It feels like this lunar eclipse can bring to a close maybe a situation, an experience, or something that generated crisis between you and someone quite close to you, maybe between you and a sibling, or between you and a family member in general, between you and a cousin, maybe between you and a neighbor. So the crisis is coming to a close. Crisis averted. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say it is averted because it's probably already run its course. And now you can kind of like sit down and hash out, okay, so now that the issue is over, it's been done and like dusted and dealt with. What next? How can we operate moving forward? How can we maybe have better communication moving forward? So I do believe that there can be a lot of productive conversations coming out of this eclipse and coming out of this crisis being brought to an end, let's say. There's also a possibility, Aquarians, that you might be revealing a secret, or someone could be revealing a secret to you, and it feels like a weight is being lifted off your shoulders, off of both of your shoulders, actually, if you ask me. So see what comes up. And last but not least, Pisces suns and Pisces risings. 13th, 14th of March, active week before, week after, but also quite active, quite activated, but potentially that's the better word. The eclipse is going to be activated also last week of May until the 11th of June, as well as last week of June. This full moon eclipse is happening in your house of relationships, partnerships, collaborations, but it also puts the spotlight on you, how you show up within certain partnerships, how you show up within certain relationships, how you show up within certain collaborations, and also how you show up within maybe the interaction that you have with someone who opposes you, like an adversary, like a very kind of like open competitor. I don't want to say enemy, but you might look at them as an enemy also. So I feel like maybe a competition with someone is coming to an end, or this sort of like adversarial energy that you have towards someone is coming to an end because they are giving up. Maybe I shouldn't be that enthusiastic because I don't know exactly what's going on in your lives, Pisces, but what I can tell you is if that anyone's been opposing you, especially Pisces risings, they're probably going to realize that they don't have a leg to stand on. And they're probably going to realize that they are much better off reaching some sort of a compromise and meeting you halfway and essentially like negotiating with you because they cannot carry on in the same manner that they have carried on up until this point. If they've been super critical towards you, if they've been trying to like pick you apart or pick apart, I don't know, maybe the work that you do or a certain approach that you have. I did mention work, and it is possible that this could be a work thing. They're probably going to realize that you had a point and that you are in the much kind of like stronger and in the much more advantageous position. Now, I did say that this eclipse can also bring certain relationships to a culminating point. I feel like this is a kind of like make it or break it moment. So you might either decide to work with someone moving forward. And when I say work with them, it could be literally work with them in the professional space, but it could also be work with them in your personal life. So you might look at a personal relationship and say, do we have a future together? Is this feasible? Is this viable moving forward? I do believe that the other person, Pisces, is willing to compromise and is willing to kind of like adapt to your requirements and to adapt to your value system. But it is important to communicate what your values are and what your requirements are. There's also a possibility that you might speak very openly about your value systems and say, yeah, okay, this is what I value. This is what you value. Is it possible to meet each other halfway? I feel like the conversation is going to be very kind of like open and easy and kind of dynamic and quick and to the point. And there is this sort of like upbeat energy when it comes to conversations happening around this time. So I don't actually see arguments or war, even if there has been conflict in between like the two of you beforehand. But I do believe that you are in the position to say yes or no to this person moving forward. You might also potentially, I don't know, do a few things here. Whatever happens at the time of this eclipse, Pisces, I see you being in a good position financially, which is probably always good news, right? So you seem to hold the cards, as they say. You seem to be in an advantageous position financially. And as a result, you might communicate to the other person, be them a business partner, be them, I don't know, like an advisor, a consultant, be them a client maybe. You might communicate to them, yes, I want us to keep on working together, or no, I don't want us to keep on working together unless you pay me XYZ. So once again, you seem to be in the stronger position, so you can make a request. You can say, I'm going to keep on working with you if you pay me this much money. If you have a therapist or if you have someone who you've been working with one-to-one, such as a coach or I'm thinking maybe of a financial coach or someone who was here to help you achieve your goals, either financially, but also in terms of confidence and self-esteem. You might take stock of this collaboration and say, yes, I have reached my goals and targets and I no longer want to keep working with you, or no, I haven't reached them and let's carry on working together, but maybe let's work together differently. So I feel like a collaboration, a relationship is going to function differently. I repeat, you seem to be calling the shots, Pisces in all of this. Some of you could also make significant announcements regarding your relationship status and sector. They're probably happy announcements, I repeat. So you could be leaving behind your relationship status as people know it, and you could be communicating about, I don't know, like getting married or getting engaged. It is very possible many times. I mean, when I see, and especially when I see a nicely aspected eclipse like it is for you, Pisces, I have seen many times people getting engaged at eclipses activating the first house, seventh house axis, or getting married, or maybe moving the relationship to the next stage, to the next level. But once again, you seem to be calling the shots. And if you want, how should I put it? If you want things to work with this person, I do believe it's incredibly important to be as honest, as direct, and as straightforward as you can possibly be, because they cannot read your mind. And you might even be able to hash out some things that have been a point of contention in the past. And that is Pisces. Folks, I want to thank you for joining me once again for this eclipse update. It's an interesting time. It's an exciting time. It's a time when we meet our fate somehow. Whatever needs to exit is going to exit our lives. If we have any sort of like karmic debts to pay, we are probably going to be made aware of them. If people are coming back from the past in our lives, I would also see that as an indicator that they might have still a stronger or like an important role that they need to play in our lives. Let us know in the comments how this eclipse plays out for you, and also don't forget to pay attention to the end of May, beginning of June. So last week of May until the 11th of June, as well as last week of June, for a further activation of the eclipse themes. If you want to work with me, I have mentioned this before, I'm going to say it again. You can find me on my website, which is written in the stars-astrology.com. You can also find it in the pinned comments and in the description box. Waiting time for a consultation with me, for a personal astrological reading with me, is between a month to a month and a half after you make the booking. So after you make the booking, I'm going to send you timing options, but you do have to make the booking first. You have to make the payment first via my website. I'm also active on Instagram in case you're active there as well. My handle is @RuxUnbelievable in one word. I have only one Instagram account. I'm not going to message you saying, oh, do you want a reading with me? If you ever get those kinds of messages, it is probably a scammer. And I recommend reporting and blocking them straight away. If you find my content useful, interesting, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, a subscribe, a share with family or friends, and you can also make a donation to my channel using the thanks button underneath the video. Take care of you folks, and I will see you next time. Bye.